opinions, sharing private frustrations, or talking about plans that have not even begun. It feels natural because speaking creates temporary comfort. But while they are trying to avoid an awkward silence, they are quietly exposing themselves. Every unnecessary sentence tells people something about how they think, what they fear, what excites them, and what they hope to achieve. To an observant person, this information is incredibly valuable. The smartest people understand that information is a form of currency. The more freely you give it away, the less valuable it becomes. Machiavelli understood that influence belongs to the person who knows more than they reveal. Imagine sitting across from someone who calmly listens while everyone else talks. They are not interrupting. They are not trying to prove how intelligent they are. They simply observe. While others reveal their ambitions, insecurities, opinions, and emotions, this person quietly collects information. By the end of the conversation, they understand everyone in the room, yet almost no one truly understands them. That imbalance creates power. People cannot easily predict someone who reveals very little about themselves. Unpredictability forces others to be cautious, and caution naturally creates respect. One of the biggest reasons people talk too much is because they seek validation. They announce every new idea because they want encouragement. They share every future goal because they enjoy hearing praise before the work has even begun. They explain every decision because they want everyone to approve of it. But this habit quietly weakens personal power. The moment your confidence depends on other people's reactions, you begin speaking for approval instead of speaking with purpose. Mastering the art of saying less means becoming comfortable, allowing your actions to earn respect instead of your words asking for it. Real confidence does not need constant witnesses. It is built privately and revealed naturally through results. There is another danger in revealing too much. Every unnecessary word gives manipulative people material they can use later. If you constantly talk about your fears, they know exactly what to attack. If you complain about your weaknesses, they know exactly where to apply pressure. If you reveal every future plan, they know exactly where to compete with you or discourage you. Most manipulation begins with information you volunteered without realizing its value. This is why emotionally intelligent people guard their words carefully. They understand that silence protects what careless conversation often exposes. Think about moments when you spoke impulsively because emotions took control. Maybe you revealed something personal while angry. Maybe you defended yourself for far too long because someone questioned your character. Maybe you explained your intentions repeatedly, hoping another person would finally understand. Later, you probably realized that speaking more did not strengthen your position. It often weakened it. The more emotional your words became, the easier they were to misunderstand, challenge, or even use against you. Mastering the art of saying less means refusing to let emotions decide when your mouth opens. Calm people choose their words. Emotional people surrender them. This does not mean becoming distant, cold, or mysterious for appearance alone. Silence without purpose is just as ineffective as endless talking. The goal is intentional communication. Before speaking, ask yourself a simple question. Does this information truly need to be shared? Does it improve the situation? Does it protect my purpose? Or am I simply speaking because silence feels uncomfortable? These small moments of awareness completely change the quality of your communication. You stop speaking to impress people. You stop explaining things that require no explanation. You stop revealing details that provide no benefit. Every sentence becomes more deliberate, and because of that, every sentence carries more weight. Notice how the most respected individuals often speak with remarkable precision. They do not rush to answer every question. They pause before responding. They choose simple words instead of endless explanations. They allow silence to exist without feeling pressure to fill it. This creates an impression of confidence because people naturally associate careful speech with careful thinking. When every word is intentional, people listen more closely. They stop ignoring your voice because they know you do not speak without purpose. Over time, this habit transforms far more than your conversations. It changes the way people perceive you. Instead of appearing emotionally reactive, you appear composed. Instead of seeming desperate for attention, you project quiet confidence. Instead of making yourself easy to read, you become someone others observe carefully because they cannot easily predict your next move. That is exactly where real influence begins. It is not built through endless talking, but through disciplined communication. The moment you master the art of saying less, your silence stops being empty and starts becoming one of the strongest forms of power you possess. One of the greatest advantages you will ever develop is learning that silence often reveals more than questions ever can. Most people believe the best way to understand someone is to keep asking questions, challenging every answer, and directing the conversation wherever they want it to go. But Machiavelli understood that people reveal their true nature most clearly when they believe they are in control of the conversation. The moment you stop feeling the need to dominate every discussion, something remarkable begins to happen. Other people start talking more. They begin filling the silence with stories, opinions, frustrations, ambitions, and secrets they never intended to reveal. That is why mastering the art of saying less is not simply about protecting your own words. It is about creating space for others to expose theirs. Watch what happens whenever an unexpected silence enters a conversation. Most people become uncomfortable within seconds. Instead of allowing the silence to exist, they rush to remove it. They explain more than necessary, add details nobody asked for, or reveal personal information simply because the quiet feels awkward. They assume silence means something has gone wrong, so they try to fix it with words. But the person who remains calm during silence gains a tremendous advantage. While everyone else is trying to escape the discomfort, the quiet observer is learning. Every extra sentence reveals personality. Every unnecessary explanation exposes priorities. Every emotional reaction uncovers hidden motivations. Silence is not empty. It is a mirror that encourages people to reveal themselves. Machiavelli believed that knowledge creates influence, and knowledge rarely belongs to the person who talks the most. Imagine entering a room where everyone is eager to impress one another. One person speaks endlessly about achievements. Another complains about unfair treatment. Someone else criticizes people who are not present. Another reveals future plans before taking the first step. While all of this is happening, one individual simply listens. They ask very little, interrupt even less, and quietly observe every interaction. By the end of the evening, they understand everyone's ambitions, insecurities, loyalties, and weaknesses, yet almost nobody knows much about them. This imbalance is powerful because information has flowed toward them instead of away from them. That is the hidden strength of saying less. Many people believe listening is passive, but strategic listening is one of the most active skills a person can develop. It requires discipline because your ego constantly wants to interrupt. It wants to prove your intelligence, tell your own story, or show that you already know the answer. But every time you interrupt, you stop collecting valuable information. The smartest individuals understand that conversations are not competitions to see who can speak the longest. They are opportunities to understand human nature. Every person reveals something if you give them enough time. Some reveal their insecurities through constant bragging. Others reveal jealousy through subtle criticism. Some expose dishonesty because their stories change with every conversation. None of this requires interrogation. It simply requires patience. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing they must immediately respond to every statement. Someone shares an opinion and they instantly argue. Someone tells a story and they immediately tell a bigger one. Someone expresses emotion and they rush to explain their own experience. Without realizing it, they turn every conversation into a performance. But people trust those who genuinely listen more than those who constantly compete for attention. When someone feels heard, they naturally lower their guard. They stop carefully choosing every word because they believe they are speaking to someone who is interested rather than someone who is waiting for their turn to speak. This is exactly when authentic thoughts begin to appear. Silence also gives you something equally valuable: time. Time to think before speaking, time to observe facial expressions, time to notice contradictions between words and actions, time to decide whether a response is even necessary. Emotional people react immediately because silence makes them uncomfortable. Strategic people pause because they understand that clarity grows in quiet moments. Many unnecessary conflicts begin because someone answered too quickly instead of thinking carefully. Mastering the art of saying less means giving yourself permission to think before your words become permanent. There is another reason silence is so powerful. It prevents you from becoming predictable. People who constantly speak reveal exactly how they think. They expose every opinion, every emotional reaction, and every future intention. Over time, others learn how to influence them because their patterns become obvious. But someone who speaks carefully remains difficult to read. Others cannot easily predict what they will do because they have not revealed every thought that crosses their mind. Unpredictability is not about being dishonest. It is about understanding that not every thought deserves immediate expression. Notice how experienced negotiators, successful leaders, and emotionally intelligent individuals often use silence naturally. After making an important statement, they stop talking. They resist the urge to keep explaining. Instead, they allow the other person to respond. Very often, the other person becomes uncomfortable and begins revealing more than they originally intended. They offer additional information, make unnecessary concessions, or expose their true concerns simply because the silence encouraged them to continue speaking. What looked like quietness was actually strategy. They understood that silence often creates better answers than endless questions ever could. As you begin mastering this habit, your relationships also change. You stop assuming people are exactly who they claim to be and start paying attention to what they consistently reveal over time. You become less impressed by confident words and more interested in repeated behavior. You notice patterns that others overlook because you are no longer distracted by your own need to keep talking. The world begins teaching you lessons that were always there, hidden beneath the noise of unnecessary conversation. Because the moment you learn to become comfortable with silence, other people will begin revealing everything you no longer need to ask. The true test of whether you have mastered the art of saying less is not during peaceful conversations. It is during moments when someone tries to provoke you. Anyone can remain quiet when everything is going well, but when your pride is attacked, your ideas are questioned, or your emotions are challenged, the natural instinct is to react immediately. You want to defend yourself, explain your intentions, and prove the other person wrong. That is exactly where most people lose their power. Machiavelli understood that emotional people reveal themselves in moments of pressure, while disciplined people protect themselves by controlling not only their emotions, but also their words. Mastering the art of saying less means refusing to let your emotions decide what leaves your mouth. Think about how manipulators operate. They rarely begin by attacking your logic. Instead, they attack your emotions. They insult you just enough to make you angry. They question your abilities just enough to make you defensive. They spread small doubts about your character just to see how quickly you react. Why? Because emotional reactions are predictable. The moment you become angry, frustrated, or desperate to defend yourself, you stop choosing your words carefully. You begin revealing exactly what they wanted to know. Your weaknesses become visible. Your priorities become obvious. Your self-control disappears. The smartest people understand that the first person to lose emotional control usually becomes the easiest person to control. Notice how arguments often become worse because people speak too quickly. Someone makes one criticism and within seconds the other person responds with 10 emotional sentences. They reveal private frustrations, old resentments, future plans, and personal insecurities, all because they wanted to win a single argument. Hours later, they regret what they said, but the words cannot be taken back. Silence would have protected them. Patience would have protected them. But emotional urgency convinced them that speaking immediately was strength, when in reality it was surrender. Mastering the art of saying less means understanding that not every attack deserves an instant response. Machiavelli believed that power belongs to the person who remains difficult to read. Emotional outbursts destroy that advantage. Imagine two people in a disagreement. One immediately raises their voice, interrupts constantly, explains every feeling, and tries desperately to prove they are right. The other listens quietly, pauses before speaking, and answers only when necessary. Which one appears stronger? It is almost never the loudest person. Calmness creates authority because it communicates something important. It tells everyone watching that your emotions belong to you, not to the situation or to the person trying to provoke you. That kind of discipline is impossible to fake for long. One reason people speak too much during conflict is because they believe more words create more clarity. In reality, the opposite often happens. The longer emotional conversations continue, the more opportunities there are for misunderstanding, manipulation, and regret. Every unnecessary explanation gives the other person another sentence they can twist, challenge, or use against you later. Toxic individuals understand this very well. They encourage you to keep talking because every additional sentence increases the chance that you will reveal something valuable. The smartest response is recognizing that silence often protects your position far better than endless explanations ever could. There is another hidden advantage to saying less during emotional moments. Silence creates time. Time allows emotions to settle before decisions are made. Many people ruin relationships, careers, and opportunities because they confused temporary emotion with permanent truth. They sent the angry message. They made the insulting comment. They exposed a secret out of frustration. Later, when the emotion disappeared, the consequences remained. Words spoken in anger continue living long after the anger itself has faded. This is why disciplined people create distance between feeling and speaking. They understand that not every emotion deserves immediate expression. Watch experienced leaders, negotiators, and successful individuals during difficult conversations. They rarely rush to answer. They pause, they observe. Sometimes they allow several seconds of silence before responding. That pause is not weakness, it is control. While emotional people react automatically, strategic people choose intentionally. Every pause gives them another opportunity to think, to notice what others are revealing, and to ensure their words serve their objective rather than their ego. Mastering the art of saying less is not about avoiding difficult conversations. It is about entering those conversations with discipline instead of impulse. Another powerful lesson is learning that you do not have to defend yourself against every criticism. Many people waste enormous amounts of energy trying to correct every misunderstanding or answer every accusation. But confident people recognize something different. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every insult deserves your attention. Sometimes your silence communicates greater certainty than any explanation ever could. When you constantly defend yourself, you quietly suggest that every stranger's opinion has the power to disturb your peace. When you remain composed, you demonstrate that your confidence does not depend on convincing everyone else. As you practice this discipline, people begin seeing you differently. They notice that you cannot be easily provoked. They realize emotional manipulation no longer works because you refuse to react on command. Your words become more respected because they are no longer scattered carelessly across every conversation. Instead of speaking from emotion, you begin speaking from intention. Instead of allowing others to dictate your reactions, you quietly choose your own responses. That transformation changes not only how people perceive you, but also how much control you have over your own life. Because the moment your emotions stop controlling your words begin carrying the kind of quiet power that no amount of loudness can ever replace. One of the clearest signs that someone has not yet mastered the art of saying less is their constant need to explain themselves. Every decision is followed by a long justification. Every no comes with a detailed story. Every choice requires approval from the people around them. At first, this seems polite and reasonable. You believe that if people understand your intentions, they will respect your decisions. But Machiavelli understood something that most people learn only after years of disappointment. The more you explain yourself, the more opportunities you give others to question, challenge, or manipulate your position. Mastering the art of saying less means understanding that confidence is often measured not by how much you explain, but by how comfortable you are allowing your decisions to stand on their own. Think about how often people apologize for choices that require no apology. They decline an invitation and immediately begin listing 10 different reasons. They set a personal boundary and then spend 5 minutes trying to convince everyone that they are still a good person. They make a career decision and feel pressured to justify it to people who have no influence over their future. Without realizing it, they are placing their own authority into someone else's hands. Every explanation quietly asks for permission. It invites debate where none was necessary. The smartest people understand that not every decision needs public approval. Sometimes a simple answer is far stronger than a perfect explanation. Machiavelli believed that authority begins with certainty. When a leader constantly explains every action, people begin sensing hesitation. They naturally assume there must be something uncertain about the decision. But when someone communicates calmly, directly, and briefly, they project confidence. This does not mean becoming arrogant or refusing to communicate. It means understanding the difference between informing people and convincing them. Informing is clear and respectful. Convincing often becomes endless because there will always be someone who disagrees. If your peace depends on making everyone understand your choices, you will spend your entire life explaining instead of living. Many people over-explain because they fear rejection. Deep down, they worry that some will think they are selfish, rude, or unreasonable. So they try to remove every possible misunderstanding before it appears. Ironically, this habit often creates the opposite effect. The more nervous your explanation becomes, the more people sense uncertainty. Manipulative individuals immediately recognize this hesitation. They begin asking more questions, offering unwanted opinions, or pushing against your decision because they notice you are trying to earn their approval. The smartest way to protect your influence is realizing that confidence does not require endless defense. People who truly respect you will usually respect a clear answer. Those who demand constant explanations often seek control rather than understanding. Notice how toxic people react when you stop over-explaining. At first, they become uncomfortable. They ask, why? Again and again, hoping you will eventually provide enough information to negotiate your decision. They may question your motives or make you feel guilty for being brief. But this reaction reveals something important. They were never searching for clarity. They were searching for an opening. Every additional explanation gives them another sentence they can challenge. Every extra detail creates another opportunity to change your mind. When your answer remains calm and simple, they lose the leverage they expected to find. Mastering the art of saying less also means understanding that actions create stronger arguments than words ever can. Many people waste years trying to explain who they are. They constantly tell others they are trustworthy, hardworking, honest, or loyal. But character is not proven through speeches. It is revealed through consistent behavior. The person who quietly keeps promises earns more respect than the person who endlessly talks about integrity. The individual who consistently delivers results gains more influence than the one who constantly announces future success. Your life becomes much simpler the moment you stop trying to convince people with words and start allowing your actions to speak on your behalf. Another hidden danger of over-explaining is that it drains emotional energy. Imagine how exhausting it becomes when every decision turns into a debate. You spend hours defending choices that should have taken only seconds to communicate. Instead of moving forward, you remain trapped in conversations designed to satisfy everyone else's curiosity. Meanwhile, your goals, priorities, and peace quietly wait in the background. Machiavelli understood that successful people protect their energy carefully. They do not waste valuable time explaining themselves to individuals who have no intention of accepting the explanation anyway. This principle becomes especially powerful during conflict. When someone accuses you unfairly, your first instinct is often to defend yourself with every detail you can remember. You believe that if you explain enough, the misunderstanding will disappear. Sometimes it will. But many conflicts continue because both sides become trapped in endless explanations instead of focusing on what actually matters. Strategic people recognize that some individuals are committed to misunderstanding you because misunderstanding gives them emotional advantage. In those situations, speaking less protects your dignity far better than speaking more. As you begin practicing this habit, you notice a shift in how others respond to you. Your words become more intentional because you no longer use them to seek approval. Your decisions become stronger because they are guided by your values rather than by other people's expectations. Conversations become calmer because you stop feeling responsible for managing everyone's opinion of you. Most importantly, you begin trusting yourself. That inner trust removes the constant urge to justify every step you take. You realize that your life is not a courtroom where every decision must be defended before an audience. Eventually, people begin respecting your clarity because they recognize that your words are chosen carefully rather than spoken impulsively. They understand that when you speak, you mean exactly what you say. That precision creates quiet authority, and quiet authority often carries far more influence than endless explanation ever could, because the moment you stop explaining every decision, your words become fewer, stronger, and far more difficult for anyone else to control. One of the most overlooked forms of weakness is the habit of explaining yourself too much. Most people believe that if they simply provide enough reasons, enough details, and enough justifications, everyone will finally understand them. They think long explanations create respect, but in reality, excessive explanation often signals uncertainty. The more desperately you try to convince people that your decision is right, the more they begin looking for reasons to question it. This is why mastering the art of saying less is not only about speaking fewer words, it is about trusting that your decisions do not require everyone's approval to be valid. The strongest people understand that confidence is quiet because it does not feel obligated to defend itself at every opportunity. Think about how often people apologize for choices that are completely reasonable. They decline an invitation and immediately begin telling a long story about how busy they are. They refuse a request and feel compelled to list every reason behind their decision. They set a boundary and then spend the next 10 minutes trying to prove they are still kind, generous, and caring. Without realizing it, they are handing control of the conversation to someone else. Every explanation becomes an invitation for negotiation. Every extra detail creates another opportunity for someone to challenge your decision. If your answer depends on convincing everyone around you, then your confidence is no longer your own. It belongs to whoever is listening. Machiavelli understood that authority is strengthened by certainty. Imagine a leader who changes direction every time someone asks, "Are you sure?" That leader quickly loses respect because people sense hesitation. Now imagine another leader who listens carefully, makes a thoughtful decision, and communicates it calmly without unnecessary justification. Which one appears stronger? It is rarely the person with the longest explanation. Strength comes from clarity. When your words are direct and intentional, people naturally assume your thinking is equally disciplined. But when every decision arrives wrapped in endless excuses, people begin looking for weakness because your own words suggest that you are uncertain. Many people confuse kindness with over-explaining. They believe that speaking endlessly is a sign of respect. In reality, respect is often communicated through honesty and simplicity. If you cannot attend an event, saying, "I won't be able to make it," is often enough. If you disagree with an idea, calmly stating your opinion is often enough. If you choose a different path in life, you do not owe everyone a detailed presentation explaining why. The habit of saying less teaches you something incredibly valuable. You are responsible for your decisions, not for managing everyone's reaction to those decisions. There is another reason over-explaining becomes dangerous. Manipulative people pay close attention to unnecessary details. The more information you provide, the more opportunities they have to question you. Suppose you say no to a request. If your answer is short and respectful, there is very little to attack. But if you spend 5 minutes explaining every reason, a manipulator can challenge every single one of them. They will tell you why you actually have enough time. They will explain why your priorities are wrong. They will question your motives. Suddenly, what should have been a simple decision becomes a debate. This is exactly why toxic individuals often encourage people to keep talking. Every additional sentence increases the chance that they will find something they can use. Mastering the art of saying less also means learning that silence often communicates confidence more effectively than endless defense. Imagine someone unfairly criticizes your character in front of others. Your first instinct may be to immediately defend yourself with a long emotional explanation. But what usually happens? The conversation grows longer, new accusations appear, more misunderstandings develop. The conflict expands because every answer creates another question. Strategic people recognize that not every accusation deserves their energy. Sometimes your consistent behavior has already answered the question better than your words ever could. Reputation is built over months and years, not during one emotional conversation. Another hidden reason people over-explain is fear. They fear disappointing others. They fear being misunderstood. They fear rejection. So they believe that if they simply explain themselves well enough, they can avoid conflict completely. Unfortunately, life does not work that way. No explanation is powerful enough to make everyone agree with you. Some people have already decided to disagree before you even begin speaking. Others are not searching for understanding at all. They are searching for control. Once you accept this reality, something changes inside you. You stop speaking to earn approval and start speaking with intention. That single shift transforms the way people perceive your confidence. Notice how truly powerful individuals communicate. They do not rush to fill every silence. They do not defend every rumor. They do not answer every criticism. Their words are measured because they understand that language loses value when it is wasted. Every unnecessary explanation reduces the impact of what truly matters. Instead of trying to convince the entire world, they focus on living in a way that makes explanation unnecessary. Their actions quietly support their words, and because of that, people begin trusting what they say without demanding constant proof. As you develop this habit, your conversations become lighter. You stop carrying the exhausting burden of trying to make everyone understand your choices. You realize that your peace is worth more than winning every argument. Your confidence grows because it no longer depends on applause, agreement, or permission. You begin making decisions based on your values instead of other people's expectations. Ironically, the less you feel the need to justify yourself, the more others begin respecting your judgment. The people who truly matter in your life will usually understand your honesty without demanding endless explanations. The people who insist on questioning every decision often reveal far more about themselves than they do about you. That realization gives you freedom. It reminds you that your responsibility is to live wisely, not to constantly defend your right to do so. Because the moment you stop explaining every decision, your silence begins communicating the confidence that words alone could never create. One of the clearest signs that someone has not yet mastered the art of saying less